Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. The blade found her palm, and Maya closed her hand around it anyway. Kesva's sensor stalks flared as the human's fingers locked around the fractured limb, blood already welling between them. Let go, the Silthurian snarled, wrenching to pull free. Maya didn't. She twisted her hips, drove a kick into ribs that had been favoring one side for the last 10 minutes, and rode the alien down into the dirt. That moment was still most of an hour away. First, you should know how a woman with no natural weapons, no armor plating, no claws, ended up there at all. Lieutenant Maya Reeves had volunteered for the one thing the galaxy assumed no human would survive: the grand melee. 50 champions enter, one walks out. Commander Velkara watched her cross the sand from the observation deck and didn't bother hiding her disgust. That's what your species sends us. It looks like it would snap. Ambassador Ithmal only smiled, the smile of someone who already knew how this would go. Give her a minute. The horn dropped, and the field turned into a slaughterhouse of tusks and blade limbs. Maya didn't run from the biggest body on the sand, she ran at it. Durkan, twice champion, half a ton of near-indestructible muscle, barely registered her before she'd slid under him, seized an ankle, and let his own weight put him on the ground. Mass doesn't care how tough you are, she told him, already moving. She dropped a Vrexian from behind before he could finish his war cry, then rolled clear of a blade aimed at her skull. That blade belonged to Kesva. You're fast, Kesva said, circling. You can't run forever. Don't need forever, Maya said. Just until you're tired. For the next 20 minutes, she refused to fight fair. She let two Tothian giants collide by dropping flat at the last second, then used their stunned bodies as a ladder to knock their skulls together. She threw sand she'd smuggled in specifically to blind a charging warrior, then tripped him into an ally. Durkan came back for a second try, cornering her with 4 fists. She took the hits on armored sections and put her elbow into his knee joint with surgical precision. You need a better guard, she said, and didn't wait to see him fall. By the time the field had thinned to 3, the crowd had stopped laughing at her. Thresher, silent, methodical, unbreakable, pointed at her the way he'd pointed at everyone he'd already beaten. Maya looked between him and Kesva, both wounded, both watching each other as much as her. Fight him first, she told Kesva. Winner gets me. I'll even wait. It worked exactly as she'd hoped. 2 apex predators, already exhausted, tore into each other while she caught her breath at the edge of the ring. When Thresher's guard finally dropped, she threw a scrap of broken armor at his feet, just enough to make him stumble, just enough for Kesva's blade to find the gap and drop him to one knee. Then it was only the 2 of them. Just us, Kesva said, blade limbs trembling with fatigue. You fight well, but you cannot match my reach. Yield, and I'll make it quick. Maya swayed on her feet, grinning through a split lip. You're probably right. You're faster. You've got knives for arms. I've got a concussion and wet noodles for legs. She let the silence stretch half a second too long. But your good arm is cracked. Your stalks keep drooping. You've been guarding your left side since round 2. Question is, do you already know you've lost, or are you still waiting to find out? Kesva hesitated. 1 heartbeat, no more. It was enough. Maya lunged, wrapped both hands around the cracked blade limb, and pulled Kesva down with her own weight instead of trying to outfight her. They went to the ground grappling, the crowd on its feet, thousands of beings from 100 worlds holding their breath at once. When it ended, Maya was sitting on Kesva's chest, both of Kesva's working limbs pinned under her knees, blood dripping steadily from the cuts across her palms. Yield, Maya asked, almost gently. The silence that followed felt longer than the whole fight. Then Kesva laughed, an actual laugh, stone grinding on stone. I yield, insane human, you've won. The arena didn't so much cheer as detonate. Up on the observation deck, Velkara gripped the rail with all 4 hands. This changes everything, she said. They told us your species was soft, unsuited for this. Rithmal's smile hadn't moved. They did say that. What came after the sand and the blood was slower, and in its way harder. 16 formal complaints alleging she'd cheated, 23 requests to study human combat footage, and a challenge from the Vrexian Empire that had nothing to do with honor. They wanted proof her win wasn't a fluke, 50 soldiers against 50, a simulated war instead of a duel. Maya had 2 weeks to turn Marines who'd never fought an alien into something that could survive Vrexians who healed from wounds that would kill a human twice over. She didn't teach them to be stronger. She taught them to be unfair. Sergeant Park rigged a building to collapse on half the enemy force before the enemy had even found the human position. Corporal Webb folded himself into a ventilation shaft everyone swore was too small for a human spine. When the Vrexian captain, Jexa, finally cornered what looked like Maya's last defenders at the flag, he discovered too late that he'd walked his entire team into a circle of humans who'd been waiting in the dark the whole time. "You cheated," he roared, flag in hand, team unconscious around him. "We won," Maya said, stepping out of the shadows. "There's a difference. You have the flag. You don't have a team. In a real war, that gets you killed." Jexa stared down at her for a long moment and then, slowly, inclined his massive head. "You have my respect, human, and my caution." "That's all we're asking for," Maya said. Months later, on the observation deck where this had all started, Velkara found her one more time, not to challenge her, but to ask the question that had been eating at her since the sand had dried. "If one of you can do this," the commander said quietly, "what happens if we ever give your species a reason to send more than one?" Maya didn't answer with a threat. She reached into her jacket and set something on the rail between them, the same scrap of broken armor she'd thrown to trip Thresher, kept as a small, ugly souvenir of the ugliest trick she'd played that day. She turned it over once, let the light catch the crack running through it, and left it there for Velkara to pick up or not. "Let's just make sure you never have to find out," she said, and walked back down into a galaxy that had finally learned to watch her hands instead of her size.